So when detailing a car, there's a few things you use. First, you have the bucket of soap. See, it has a little bit of water and it's mostly bubbles. You have different size paint brushes. So I have my short, stiff bristle brush, and this is for, let's say you get a spill, maybe coffee or something, inside this crevice, and you need something stiffer, use the stiff bristle brush. You have your long bristle brush, which is good for things like heat vents, seat tracks, and things of that nature. Then you have your medium bristle brush, which is self-explanatory. Then I have a really thin brush, which is good for getting in places where these brushes are too thick. You see the difference there. Then I have my shampoo rag. This is my least aggressive shampoo rag. I have some that's more aggressive for worse cars. This car isn't that bad, so it doesn't need a shampoo, an aggressive shampoo. Then I also have the rag I use to dry the seats off with when I'm done. So the cleaner you'll be using is already mixed, so you don't have to worry about damaging anything. First thing you want to do is wipe down the door panel. You want to make sure you get in the in this part, the armrest. You don't want to make sure you're using mostly bubbles. There's not a lot of water on this rag, so you want to go over the window button, but you don't want to really jam your rag down in there. You want to make sure you get the sides of the door up under it, that side, the radio. And a place that's commonly missed is behind this. Get back there, you wipe that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to let that sit. We're going to let the product work instead of you overworking yourself. We're going to let the cleaner break that down. So what we're doing now is we're going through, we're wiping down anything plastic or vinyl. See, this here is cloth, so I'm not going to get that right now. I'm focusing primarily on plastic and vinyl. I'm going to hit the side of that. That's how I'm going to pull this down. There's not a lot of stuff in here. So we should have got that out when we vacuumed. We'll go back through and we'll vacuum that out, and then we'll wipe it out. Usually before you do a detail, we did this differently this time, but usually before you do a detail, what you do is you take everything out, the cup holders, all the pockets, the center console. You take everything out, you put it all in the same place, typically a trunk, or if we're working this out, we put it in a corner somewhere. And that way nothing gets displaced, and when it's time to shampoo, everything is already out the way. So if we planned on shampooing this car in the beginning, we would have taken all this stuff out and it would have been ready for a shampoo. But since we didn't, we're going to have to go back and re-vacuum that out, and then we'll wipe it out and clean it. So for now, we'll just put that back up. So now we're going to do the same thing with the seats. We're going to wipe the seats down. And again, this is a lot more, this is a really sudsy cleaner. So it's more bubbles than water. So it's not as much water on these seats as it looks. So we're going to let that sit for a second. These rubber floor mats come out because we're going to hit those with a pressure washer and rinse them off. Gotta make sure you hit the back of this seat. You also want to hit the sides from the back, from behind the seat. Commonly misplaced is right up under the headrest. So also make sure you get that part, as well as the back of the headrest. And I also hit the side of this seat because it's always easier to see from this angle. So now what I'm doing is the same thing I did on the door. I'm letting the cleaner sit on the seat and break down the dirt. Now I'm going to go through and do the same thing with the floor mats. Generally what I do with the carpet up under the floor mats is I check up under the floor mat. I make sure there isn't any stains. If it's stained badly, I'll take the floor mat all the way out. I set it to the side and I'll shampoo it. If it's not stained badly, like there's nothing in here, so what I'll use is a foam cleaner, and I'll take a brush and I'll go through and scrub it that way. The reason we do it that way because we don't want this too wet. Because this is plastic, if we get this wet, if we soak it down like we did at the front of this, and then go and put the floor mat back over it, this carpet is going to mildew. So we do this differently. So if it was stained badly, instead of putting the carpets back down, we'll put in the trunk. Some customers isn't so happy with that because they're worried about stains getting back on this carpet. But in some cases, we don't have a choice. So, but like I said, with this one, what we're going to do is after we shampoo the floor mat, we're going to go behind it with a scrub brush and a foam cleaner and clean the carpet. Now what I'm going to do is aggressively scrub the leather. I always use my knuckles to make sure I'm cutting in. And I always hit it in 3 directions. So back and forth, we'll hit it 3 times. Back and forth, up and down, and back and forth again. You always get, this is commonly missed. You always have to make sure you hit this part of the seat. And usually what I do is work with gravity, so we'll hit this part here, up and down, this part here. And we'll go back and hit the top of it. And pull this down. Scrub that. And like I said, you want to go over everything in different directions 3 times. It's easier to do a really good job cleaning the first time than it is to have to go back over it and keep spot cleaning the little things you might miss. So I'm going to wring my rag out. I don't want to transfer any dirt. I'm going to start here. This is an awkward angle since I'm on the heel. And what I do is the seat is already sectioned off. So you have this section here, you have this section here, you have that section here. So when I'm cleaning the seat, that's what I'm focused on. So when I'm cleaning this seat, I'm not focused on cleaning this whole seat. My focus is on cleaning this section of the seat. Then I get here and I focus on cleaning this section of the seat. A lot of people view what they're doing as cleaning the entire seat. But most of the time when that happens, when you're not focusing on individual sections and you're doing more of something like that, you tend to miss spots like here and up under here. But when you're focusing on one section at a time, you typically don't miss stuff like that. And that goes for everything. Even the cleaning of the outside of the car, you want to clean this one panel at a time, one window at a time, one tire at a time. You just focus on what you're doing at the present moment and not everything you have to do. Go back and re-clean that. Go all the way down to the bottom, up and down, right and left, up and down, right and left, up and down. Same thing here. You always got to be careful of hitting your knuckle on that seatbelt. Kind of hurts. Go through and do the headrest. So because this car has leather behind the headrest, which isn't really common, we're going to go back and make sure we get here because there'll be a lot of dust built up all along this. I'm going to get that now. And work my way down. Now I'm going to clean the part of this bottom part of this seat. A lot of people get concerned with these perforated seats, worrying about getting water inside of it. The majority of the cars I clean are leather. I don't put a lot of water on it. Like I said, this is mostly suds, but I've never had an issue with anything getting down in the seats. And if I did, what I would do is simply, most of these seats that's perforated have a heated seat feature. You just turn the heated seats on and drop in the water. That may have gotten down in there. And as you can see, I'm doing the sash of the seats over here. You always got to make sure you hit that. And what I left out is, so there's three parts to this. The first part I did was wiped everything down to let the chemical sit. Now I'm going back and scrubbing everything. Then I'll go back and wipe everything off. But I'm going to wipe the leather off before I start on the carpet, because the nature of leather, with it being dyed, you don't want to let anything sit in there too long. This generally can drop on a seat and it won't cause any damage, but better safe than sorry. And what I'm doing now is I'm actually sticking my hand, well, this side don't have it, in the split of the seat and wiping in there, because a lot of times stuff might run, you might get juice or something out wrong, and you can't see it from the front. But as soon as that person let that seat down to put something in the trunk or whatever they let it down for, they'll see it. I still have to vacuum that out, so I'll go back and get that. And when you're drying a seat, it's really your last pass over it. So I dry it just as aggressively as I scrub it. That way, if I missed anything on the scrub, then I'll get it now. What always happens when you're cleaning seats, you get dirt that was stuck in the crevices and it pops out. So you end up with stuff like this. So usually we go back and vacuum at the end. You can actually tell the difference in the seat now. I don't know how we can catch it on camera, but there's a big difference between this seat and that seat. So now what we're going to do is scrub the carpet. You don't want to have too much water. That was a little too much there. You don't want to have too much water because you want to make sure it dries in a timely fashion. You do it just like you do the seats. You go over it a few times in different directions. And like I said, this looks like a lot of water, but it's mostly suds. I think the most important part of the shampoo is the drying, because with this towel being dry, it creates more friction, so it gets out even more. Then just like I did when I vacuumed, instead of putting this exactly how it was, what I'm going to do is pull this down even further, so now I have better access. You always have to pay attention to angles when you're doing a car, because you don't have a lot of room. We can't like sit on a seat and bend down and screw up this, so you always gotta try to get everything at the best angle possible. And so with the back of the seat, as you can see, it was dirt here. That's the great thing about letting this sit on it, because the majority of the time, unless they have kids that kind of kick down here, once you wipe it off, you don't have to go back and scrub it. A lot of times you just aggressively dry it, and that seat looks perfect. You always got to make sure you get right around where the seat lifts and lowers. Let's see if you can see it here. Because you get a lot of dirt caught up in that part. I got it off on this side already. Well, I don't know if you can see this here. You get a lot of dirt right in this part, a lot of dust. So you always got to take your dry rag and press it down and make sure you get that out. You want to wipe those off a little bit. A lot of times that stuff don't come off, but you wipe it anyway just to be safe. Now we come back to the door and the plastic. As you can see, just like the back of the seat, once that stuff has set in, it breaks down most of the dirt. So there's very few cars where you actually got to go back and scrub. And scrubbing this, you can't do it aggressively, because this leather is a lot softer than leather in the seat. The leather in the seat is meant to be to take more of an abuse. This seat, not so much. This part, not so much, because it's not meant to be set on or anything. And most of the stuff that gets on it is just like dirt or mud off your hands. So it usually don't set on too deep. So you don't really got to scrub it. Just let the chemicals work their magic.